In the shadowy corners of rock history, one figure stood apart, a guitar god whose standards were as towering as his amplifier stacks. Jimmy Page, the mystical mastermind behind Led Zeppelin's thunderous sound, wasn't just a revolutionary musician who turned blues into heavy metal magic. He was also a man who carried strong opinions and even stronger grudges toward some of his peers. "Learning the craft fascinated me as much as playing," Page once said. "I was obsessed with how things were recorded, how sound itself worked. Welcome to Rock Rivalries Uncovered, where today we explore the darker side of Jimmy Page and the 6 guitarists who reportedly earned his legendary contempt. The London-born architect of classics like Whole Lotta Love and Black Dog was known for being a perfectionist, a man for whom music was both art and alchemy. "There are guitarists who play," he once told a journalist in 1975, "and there are guitarists who understand." Most fall into the first category. For Page, several big names simply didn't measure up. From tense studio encounters to whispered put-downs across the industry, these stories reveal more than personal feuds. They expose deep philosophical divides about what it meant to truly serve the song. So plug in your Marshall stacks and let's count down the 6 guitarists who reportedly made Jimmy Page's blood boil. 6. Ritchie Blackmore. Coming in at number 6 is a name that might surprise you, Ritchie Blackmore of Deep Purple and Rainbow. Both men were hailed as pioneers of heavy rock in the early 1970 seconds, but behind the curtain, their respect for each other was complicated. According to rock journalist Jeff Barton, Page once quipped to session musicians at Olympic Studios, "Blackmore thinks every song needs a bloody sword fight." The man confuses volume with passion. What bothered Page wasn't just Blackmore's technical prowess, it was his theatricality. While Page conjured mysticism and mood through texture and tension, Blackmore leaned into medieval theatrics and showmanship. "There are guitarists who serve the song," Page once said, "and there are guitarists who make the song serve them." Studio insiders claimed that was a thinly veiled jab at Ritchie. At a London recording session in 1974, witnesses say Page walked out the moment Blackmore arrived, muttering to his roadie, "I don't have time for costume parties." Ironically, Blackmore never seemed aware of Page's disdain. He even praised Zeppelin's musicianship in interviews. But to Page, Blackmore embodied everything he opposed: flash over feeling, spectacle over soul, performance over purpose. 5. Eddie Van Halen. At number 5, we dive into one of rock's most seismic rivalries, Jimmy Page versus Eddie Van Halen. Eddie, the Dutch-American virtuoso who changed guitar forever with his two-handed tapping technique, emerged as the face of a new generation, and Page wasn't thrilled. After Van Halen's explosive debut album in 1978, Page reportedly told colleagues at a London pub, "Anyone can learn parlor tricks. Real guitar playing comes from the heart, not from showing off like a circus act." That remark reached Eddie's camp within weeks. Ironically, Van Halen had often cited Page as a major influence. What infuriated Page wasn't Eddie's talent, it was what his success symbolized. While Page had built Zeppelin on soulful blues and layered mysticism, Van Halen's high-speed acrobatics represented a shift toward athletic guitar-playing technique over emotion. "There's a difference between playing guitar and playing with a guitar," Page reportedly told an interviewer in 1979. Everyone knew who he meant. At a Los Angeles studio in 1980, when someone mentioned Van Halen's Eruption solo, Page allegedly snapped, "I've heard enough about bedroom noodling for one lifetime." Eddie remained respectful, calling Page a master, but the damage was done. To Page, the future of guitar was becoming flash and fretboard gymnastics, what he once called technical masturbation. 4. Yngwie Malmsteen. Crashing into number 4 is perhaps the most volatile clash on our list, Yngwie Malmsteen. The Swedish neoclassical shredder, known for his ego and his lightning-fast fingers, reportedly drove Page up the wall. Their unspoken feud began in the mid-1980 seconds when Malmsteen burst onto the scene declaring himself the greatest guitarist alive. According to journalist Malcolm Dome, Page fumed at a charity event. "This Swedish peacock thinks Bach wrote power chords. He's confused technique with music itself." Page admired discipline, but what Yngwie represented, pure speed and arrogance, offended his old-school sense of artistry. While Page wrote songs that breathed and built, Malmsteen was performing what he called Baroque shredding. Page allegedly referred to it as classical music rape, believing Yngwie's playing stripped emotion from the guitar. "Some people think more notes equals more music," Page told a Swedish reporter. in 1987. They're usually the same people who think louder equals better. Their worlds collided at a 1,988 Guitar Expo, where Page reportedly left halfway through Yngwie's set, muttering, "I don't need to watch someone practice scales for 20 minutes. Malmsteen later retaliated in interviews, dismissing Zeppelin's catalog as primitive blues noodling. He'd hit the one nerve that could truly set Page off. 3. Keith Richards. At number 3, a rivalry that divided British rock royalty, Jimmy Page versus Keith Richards. Both guitarists helped define 1,960 seconds rock, but they couldn't have been more different. Page was the alchemist, layering sounds like a composer. Richards was the raw craftsman, living and breathing rhythm and blues. According to journalist Robert Greenfield, Page once told engineers, "Keith thinks 5 chords make him Chuck Berry. The man wouldn't recognize a melody if it bit him on his weathered arse." The insult traveled fast through London's tight-knit scene. For Page, Richards represented simplicity, mistaken for depth, what he called 3-chord primitivism. "Anyone can bash out satisfaction," Page allegedly told NME in 1973. Real musicianship requires more than repeating the same riff for 50 years. Things turned ugly backstage at Madison Square Garden in 1975, where witnesses say Richards ignored Page's extended hand, muttering, "I don't shake hands with thieves," a jab at Zeppelin's alleged plagiarism of blues songs. Richards later brushed off Page's work as overproduced wankery. Their feud wasn't just about personality, it was authenticity versus artistry, with no clear winner. 2. Jimi Hendrix. At number 2, the shocker, Jimi Hendrix. The ultimate guitar god allegedly became the source of Page's deepest envy. When Hendrix exploded onto the London scene in 1967, his psychedelic brilliance instantly eclipsed Page's rising reputation. According to historian Charles Shar Murray, Page told friends, "This American comes over here and suddenly everyone forgets who was playing guitar before him. He's all flash and feedback, where's the musicianship?" For Page, Hendrix represented chaos, where he prized structure-controlled madness over composition. "Some people think breaking guitars makes you a genius," Page said in 1969, clearly referencing Jimmy's fiery stage antics. "Real musicians don't need pyrotechnics." Behind the scenes, Page reportedly grew paranoid, convinced Hendrix was deliberately overshadowing him in the London press. He allegedly told his bandmates, "He's trying to make everyone forget there were guitarists before him." Even after Hendrix's tragic death in Etusinde o 900 o halvfjerds, Page never fully let it go privately, dismissing Jimmy's legacy as theater over talent. The ghost of Hendrix haunted him, a reminder that no matter how good you were, someone else could always burn brighter. 1. Eric Clapton. And at number 1, the ultimate British blues rivalry, Jimmy Page versus Eric Clapton. Once friends, later foes, their competition defined the London scene of the 1,960 seconds. According to journalist Chris Welch, Page once scoffed to session players, "Eric plays the same 3 blues licks, and everyone calls him a god. I guess mediocrity sells better than innovation." The insult spread like wildfire. The real breaking point came when Clapton poached drummer Jim Gordon, who'd been collaborating with Page. Feeling betrayed, Jimmy reportedly told friends, "Eric builds his career on other people's talent because he doesn't have enough of his own." By the 1,970 seconds, both men were global icons, but the rivalry only intensified. At a party, Page allegedly told guests, "The difference between Eric and me is that I create music. He just copies it louder." When Clapton later praised blues legends while downplaying Led Zeppelin's influence, Page fired back, privately, calling him a blues museum curator who's never had an original idea in his life. Their feud came to a symbolic climax at the 2004 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ceremony, when Page's solo on "While My Guitar Gently Weeps" left Jaws on the floor. Before stepping on stage, he reportedly said, "Tonight, they'll know I don't just wear purple, I play it." For Page, it was never just rivalry, it was war between tradition and transformation. "Some people worship their guitars," he told Guitar World in 2009. "I make mine worship me." And there you have it, the 6 guitarists who reportedly made Jimmy Page see red. Behind the mystique of Led Zeppelin's mastermind was a fiercely competitive perfectionist who demanded the impossible from others and from himself. Whether you side with Page or his rivals, one truth remains: His passion, his ego, and his relentless pursuit of greatness helped forge the sound of rock itself. So, which feud shocked you most? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more untold stories from rock's golden age.